The government has so we got different governments. We have the local, we have the state, we have we start at the bottom. We have the person, the people, the local, which is your city, your town or county or village or whatever. You have your state, and then you have your federal government. Now, your individual authority is absolute. You have absolute authority over what you choose to do or not to do. You can't really, there's no real explaining that away. There's you can't turn that into any big real subject. It's plain and simple. You have the authority over your choices, which they're trying to take from you, by the way, by dictating whether or not you have to have a vaccine or you can't go outside or you have to like wear a mask. You can't choose to take the risk of the disease or whatever. They're taking away your right to choose. And then you got your local governments, which is your town, your village, your counties. So this is where your sheriff is, your mayors are. These are the people in charge of what happens in your town, your cities, your village, your counties, what happens with your laws in all these areas. If they're not fixing your roads and embezzling money. It's not the federal government that's embezzling money and not fixing your roads. It's your local government embezzling money and not fixing the roads. This is where you pay your excise taxes. This is where you pay your property taxes. If you're not having enough money for your education, this is where your educational money comes from. The federal government gives extra money, but the majority of the money comes from your town and your village. So if your town and your village if you're not paying attention and you're not holding those people accountable, and you like, because if your mayor is doing fucked up shit and you keep bitching at your senator, the mayor's going to continue to do fucked up shit, and your senator's going to like continue to be like, oh yeah, I'll look into that, but not looking at that because your senators doesn't represent you; it represents the state. You don't matter to the senator. Period. The state that it's the state that they represent. Your representation is your mayor, and you like, and he represents you to the governor, and your governor represents you to the representative of the state, and the state is represented by the senator. If you don't focus on the bottom up, and you keep focusing on the top down, the bottom is not going to represent you, so the top is not going to represent you because they represent the middle. If you get what I'm saying. You have to make sure the state represents you, and then yeah, senators will represent you because they represent the state, and the state represents you. You can't skip them. Just because you elect the senator doesn't mean they represent you. That is not their focus. Their focus is the state. You are only one citizen of the state. That is not their purview. That is not their role. That is not their authority. Now, and from that, you got the next state up, the state government, and they preside over all the counties and all the towns and stuff. Well, your county government, state government, it's kind of the same, but like the county presides over all the cities in the county, and the county is the state, and it just keeps going up the line, so that the state, like the governor doesn't represent you; it represents Salem, Boston, Baltimore, Philly, Oregon, Seattle. Like these different counties and these different cities, like the Seattle, Boston, Oregon, Philly. These are places that represent you. Um, and people don't seem to understand that. And then you got the federal government, which they really don't. The federal government is not to take care of you. It's not to give you money. It's not to baby you. It's not to protect you from failure. You are free to fail or succeed on your own. The federal government's job is to settle disputes between states, protect us from foreign military intervention, and protect our constitutional rights. And it's failing at all three of those. It's like it's not supposed to pay for your education. It's not supposed to pay for your health care. It's not supposed to pay for your food, your water. It's not supposed to do that. You are free to pay or fail that. Like you fail that is on you. Now, if you as a community want higher minimum wage, that's not the federal government's purview. You go to your local town mayor, and you go to your weekly meetings, and you go to the right meeting, and you bring it up for your town or your county or your state. That's how it works. Each state, because like a $15 minimum wage might tank a rural East Bump place that doesn't really make any money, like we'll say South Dakota, North Dakota. I don't know what their GDP is, but California can handle it. So if California wants a $15 minimum wage, California can vote to have 15 minimum wage in California. But just because you live in Dakota and you're mad that California gets $15 an hour and you only get 10 doesn't mean you should just to get $10 an hour because you might not be able to afford it. That's why it's individual states. States have their own rules, their own rights. We're not one country, the United States of America. We have 50 different countries together in a union. We each have our own rules. We each have our own things. And like what they want in California should not be forced upon Massachusetts. What they want in Massachusetts should not be forced upon Texas. That's just the separations of powers again that we're getting it. Like we're getting all this ass backwards. It's not how it works. And because of that, the government's not, it has, you put too much on the federal government's plates. It can't even focus on its primary responsibility, protecting us from foreign invasion. That's obviously not happening. We had the worst hack of the century, and 90% of our politicians are sleeping with or under the guise of Chinese spies. We know for a fact that Eric Swalwell, one of our politicians, was sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang, that we know is a Chinese spy. And this motherfucker still sits on the Intelligence Committee. Because none of you bastards hold people accountable. Like, this is asinine. Like, that's not it's a different subject. But it goes to show you, if you're not holding people accountable and you're not paying attention to the separation of powers and you're not moving up the ladder and you're not focusing where the bottom up, you're going to have these problems. You can focus on the top down, so you're going to bitching about Smallwell, but nobody can do something about Smallwell, and nobody cares about doing anything about Smallwell because these guys are all banking money off you, and you're blaming him. They rather keep him there for you to blame him so they can keep banking money off you. You need to switch that up. You need to call an audible. I don't know how else to do this. To even explain this, the government, your rights are absolute, which is why we talked about rights in the last podcast. The government doesn't have the purview to stop you from doing that, but it is anyway. And you have to hold them accountable. Like, instead of bitching about Trump for the COVID and all these, like, and having your businesses and needing stimulus money like most Democrats do, blame your Democratic governor. He's the one that closed your businesses down. He is the one that made you in this mess in the first place. Take New York, for instance, where Como is like, it's literally targeting the Jewish community when they're the only ones that can, like, all the restrictions are in their community. And you come out and, like, these governors are told it's unconstitutional, you can't do that, and they're still doing it anyway. The courts basically told them that you don't have the authority to do this, and they were like, ha ha ha! You see these balls? Ha ha! Lick them. Like, I can't believe you guys are still bitching about Trump or Lindsey Graham or whoever, Ron Paul or AOC, or like, they're not your fucking problem. They are a problem, but they're not your fucking problem. They're our fucking problem. And once we all solve each individual problems, we can focus on the collective issues pretty damn easily.